And welcome back to another great edition of this podcast that is called The Hit. I am your great host, Logan Graffia, and he is Calvin Rons, as usual. And getting right into it, our first topic is the Saints. Training camp starts Wednesday, or if you're watching this, whatever day you're watching this, it starts July 27th and wraps up August 28th, right when preseason wraps up. So, my question to you, Calvin, is since training camp is coming up, there's always talks of cut candidates. I've been seeing a lot of articles with cut candidates lately. Five cut candidates too. So for this, I'm gonna ask you, give me three cut candidates who you think won't make it out of training camp or even after preseason.
Um, so the tight ends. I feel like Ethan Wolf won't make it. I just feel like um Kroll can take his spot. Uh Jawan Johnson, me and you talk about him a couple times. Like he's on a bubble, but I feel like he just has enough connection with Jameis to where he can still be here. Um Tony Snell, I think he could be a big cut candidate, or Dwayne Washington. I'm really back and forth on those two
I think
because
you're
if
thinking
Abram
of
Smith
Tony
is as good as
Jones.
advertised,
I'm thinking you're thinking of
oh
Tony
yeah,
Jones.
Tony Jones,
It's all good.
yeah, Tony Jones Jr. If Abram Smith is as good as advertised, then
hmm
then I don't really see much room for having either him or Dwayne Washington because they Tony Jones just isn't really he just hasn't shown what he did last year in the preseason. But if I had to choose like a big surprise guy to get cut, because I know I can sit here and talk about the guys who's obviously never going to touch the roster, like Rashid Shaheed, the receiver. But hot take cut candidate Bradley Roby. He makes a lot of money, and Paulson Adebo took most of his reps last year, and we all know that Mickey Loomis is a cheap bastard. So 10 million to not be a starter, that's a lot. So yeah, if he doesn't get cut, I can see him restructure something, but that's my three.
Well, that's actually not surprising at all. And if Abram Smith is as advertised or as good as advertised, you know how happy I am going to be. So for me, my cut candidates would be probably Tony Jones Jr., Dwayne Washington, the two running backs, because I think not only is Abram going to take Tony's spot, but I also think Devine Ozigbo is going to take Dwayne's spot because I think special teams is really going to play a factor. I know Dwayne's been on special teams for quite a bit more than anything, and Devine Ozigbo now has special teams experience, and he's you're seeing him in OTAs. He was great at catching the ball on swing routes and wheel routes, so we need that. And then this is not really a hot take. People might think it's a hot take, but I really think Traquan could be a cut candidate. Traquan Smith, because ever since he's been here, he's been so inconsistent. There will be times in games where he'll be wide open and drop the ball. Like no one could be around him for miles, and he'll drop the ball, and then he'll catch one of the most historic passes from Drew Brees to help him break like the touchdown record or whatever it was again. And it's just like too inconsistent for me. I know he has all the chemistry in the world with Jameis and all that whoop de woo. I don't care. I really don't. What I want is consistency. I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, I can go out there and make those catches," because I probably can't. But Traquan is just not consistent enough for me. And also with Tony Jones Jr., we both agree on that. He just he just flopped. He looked great in those preseason games, and that's why Latavius Murray got cut for Tony Jones Jr. because we're thinking, okay, he's going to look like that in a season. Bye bye Latavius. Didn't look the part at all in the regular season. Looked like a deer caught in the headlights when the lights came on. So those are my three. Traquan more than anything because he has just ticked me off for the last few seasons. He really has. And one player I think can take his spot who I've heard Mike Detillier compare him to Marcus Colston. That is Dejon Dixon. That's my hot take right there. But my other question to you is, what do you really want to see coming out of training camp going into preseason from the Saints? Like, what are you mostly wanting to see?
I want to see Marcus Davenport be alive at some point. Um, that man pisses me off to no end. You see her talk about Trayvon Smith being inconsistent. Well, Marcus Davenport's health is inconsistent, and that's frustrating because we passed up on a Heisman quarterback for that man in Lamar Jackson. We traded a first round pick to get him when we could have just sat back in our spot in hindsight and still picked Lamar Jackson.
Yes,
And then next year, pick somebody else. Uh, I would like to see Michael Thomas also be alive. It's very frustrating when I feel like they just haven't told us everything because in my mind there is no way in hell even the most severe of ankle tears and sprains should have you out for 2 years. That shouldn't be a thing. There's no reason why he shouldn't be ready by now, even if they're taking it slow. That's hella slow for an ankle injury. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if he's like anti Wolverine and he just heals at a super decelerated pace. But this is not. I mean, one of my friends he said that Michael Thomas probably just packed on way too much muscle while he was rehabbing. And it's just messed up with all the healing. I don't know, but I want to see those two actually be alive. I want to see how well Jameis can move because he got cleared, but I'm not buying that because the last time I've seen he's still a little wobbly.
big time.
Um, I want to see Abram Smith and DeJohn Dix because you talk about them a lot. I want to see those two guys set themselves apart. As a matter of fact, I might be able to sneak my way to the training camp on the 27th. I'm still here. I don't have to leave until the 28th to go back to Tech. Uh, so if it's possible, I might be able to sneak up there, see what's going on. But I also want to see Honey Badger, man. I want to see how he
Absolutely.
fits in. I want to see what he's gonna do, and maybe he might have his number. What number is he wearing? So that's some stuff I want to see. But for you, other than the obvious questions of Jameis and like people's health, what's a couple things that you would want to see from training camp?
Well, I mean, I'd like to see improvement on the offensive line, especially in the guard play, and even at left tackle. I mean, I like James Hurst, and I love that we picked Trevor Penning because he was rated as one of the top offensive tackles in the entire draft, and that's why we got him. But guard play mainly, not only health but play wise. Andres Pete, I don't care if he made a Pro Bowl. He shouldn't have made a Pro Bowl. I mean, Pete has not been great since he's got. I mean, he's been. If I had to give him a grade, he's probably been about a C plus, C minus, and then of course you got Ruiz, who we passed up on Patrick Queen, the pick, and he has been horrible. The two players I mentioned got our quarterbacks hurt the last few years. Pete I mean, no one can block Aaron Donald. I mean, that's fine, but still, you get your Hall of Fame quarterback hurt. Then actually, Ruiz comes in, Contavia Street, who is now in the Saints,
Mm-hmm.
comes in and completely destroys Drew Brees' whole entire body. And if you go back and look on film, I can't remember what game it was. I think it might have been the Dolphins game, where as soon as the ball was snapped, Cesar Ruiz is not looking at the man he's supposed to block. He's looking to the left, and then the guy on the right just runs right past him and completely destroys Ian Book. So what I would like to see is I want to see Doug Marrone transform these guys into actually playing great on the offensive line because it starts up front, starts in the trenches. Everyone says, "Oh, we got all these weapons. Jameis is going to be great. Jameis is going to be great." If you don't have the offensive line, you won't be great. Not everyone is Joe Burrow and can bring a team without an offensive line to a Super Bowl. And we all saw if Joe had like 5 more seconds to throw or even just a better offensive line, they win this Super Bowl, you give the Saints a great offensive line, the sky's the limit because I agree we do have the weapons. I do want to see how Jameis does with weapons now. I mean, I almost feel like this is like 2019 Tampa, where he has similar weapons in a sense. So for me, I want to see how Doug Marrone turns that offensive line around because the only ones on that offensive line that I think are consistent is Eric McCoy, great center, love him, and then of course Ryan Ramczyk, who's gonna probably be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, he's basically like a second coming of Willie Roaf on this Saints team, in my opinion. I know that's probably a stretch, but he is that good.
Now, I'm gonna say real quick, gone are the days of Jari Evans, John Stinchcomb, Carl Nix, like all these guys, man, Zach Streif, man, gone are those days, and it is really wild to see. And it's a question I've really had for Sean Payton in the front office for a little while. Why why do we not try to repeat these things? Because the offensive line has just been, I wouldn't say abused, but they just haven't hit on the offensive line like how they used to back in the day. And even with running backs, we've always used to have like 3, 4 good running backs that can start. Look at Chris Ivory, who was a third string for us, goes and starts for an NFL team. Kyrie
Right.
Robson goes and starts for an NFL team. Tim Hightower comes there, he goes starts for another team. Like our third, fourth string guys can start on teams, and now we only have usually 2 good backs,
That
if
was the
that.
genius of Sean Payton, man. He was just a whisperer of offense. He was just truly a genius. I mean, he learned under Parcells. I don't. We're just gonna have to see. We're just gonna have to see with what happens in training camp and preseason, which I am excited for. But we are gotta move on to our next topic. And before we get into the actual topic of discussions, just read on Twitter that Dyson Daniels is close to being 100% already from what they are calling a twisted ankle. So that is great news. Just wanted to include that in there. But us as Pelicans fans, we love mock trades, Calvin. We love it. What is a player or who are players that you would like to see moved for certain players? Like, give me a mock trade that you find that is realistic and not like crazy where like we're just trading one player for like 15 others.
So I assume we're talking just Pels based, correct? So considering that the Utah Jazz are having an absolute fire sale right now, I will be inclined. I can't remember which Bogdanovich it is. I think it's Bogdan that's
It's,
there.
I,
Uh,
I think it's Bohan. Is Bohan.
okay, Bohan Bogdanovich. I would like to see Devontae Graham, maybe 1 pick or 2 picks. I think 2 picks would be a little bit too much, but if we could package Graham, um, I don't remember if Tony Snell's on the roster. I don't think he is. I think he's off contract now. But if he is on contract, then you could put Snell in there and a pick for Bogdanovich. I don't think Bogdanovich is going to be that expensive because I mean they're asking for 7 first rounders for Donovan Mitchell and they asked what 5 first rounders for Rudy Gobert. I think they'll be fine with just taking picks at this point. So throw a pick in there for Bogdanovich, throw in Devontae Graham, get him off the books. You add another shooter because I think Jose is going to end up ultimately taking Devontae Graham's spot.
Mm-hmm.
He can do everything just about better than Devontae Graham at this point. So that's a guy who I want to see. Uh, but I mean, it's realistic. Uh, he'll make it somewhat realistic for us. Once again, you just have to throw in Devontae Graham. Maybe you're throwing Jax. Um, that would be a little unfortunate. But if you can get away with throwing in Willie Hurt and Goldman, that will also be a steal. Um, but that's about as much as I would really want because, as I stated before, the only people I wanted to trade for was DeAndre Ayton and maybe DeJounte Murray, and I believe that was it. That's the only people I had, and Mitch Robinson. But all those guys are locked up, so I think that Bogdanovich and Buddy Hield or Miles Turner would be a possibility, but not so much of Miles Turner.
So for me, you kind of already said the one I'm thinking of, and probably everyone else is thinking of, and that is Bogdanovich from Utah. They already said they would be willing to even attach a pick to get Bogdanovich off. So If you can trade maybe Devontae, I hate to trade Garrett Temple because I thought he was going to be on the coaching staff, but if you could trade Devontae, I don't know who else you would include in the deal besides Garrett Temple and maybe like a second round pick and get in return like Bogdanovich and a first round pick because they're talking about attaching a first round pick to this guy. Now that would be crazy. I would even no, not Garrett Temple. I would trade Kyra for this guy because I hate to do it. It's just Kyra. He was coming on last season before his injury, but we're already the depth chart's already filled. And it's just like it's going to be hard for Kyra to get minutes. So you get someone who's like a veteran knockdown 3-point shooter like Bogdanovich. That's perfect off the. You can't ask for much more, and you got to remember the length of Bogdanovich. If I'm not mistaken, he's like 6'7", 6'8". I don't remember if I'm not mistaken. So that would be just one player I would have loved to see us going after Colin Sexton, do like a sign and trade for Colin Sexton because he is like he averages 20 points per game and like 8 assists. You get that off the bench with like Jose and maybe even Trey Murphy. Uh, Geez, it's a lot of shooting, and you can never have enough shooting. So that's our picks for the Pels. So we're moving into one of our final topics of discussion, and it's the USFL, Calvin. A lot of players are being signed. It's almost like we're seeing like a reincarnation of the USFL of the 80s, where a lot of players made a name for themselves and now they're finding themselves on NFL rosters, especially a lot of Breakers players. Right before we got on, New Orleans Breakers quarterback Kyle Sloter signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then a few days earlier, the New Orleans Breakers tight end Sal Cannella signed with the Green Bay Packers. So, Calvin, what do you make with all these moves that are happening with USFL, the NFL players? Like, what's your take on this?
It will be extremely beneficial and extremely intelligent for the USFL to walk up into the NFL's office and say, "All right, hey, you see what's happening? I think we need a partner here, and I think if for us to survive, we honestly gonna need more help, and you guys will help. If the NFL cosigns, this thing is lasting for as long as the NFL is lasting. So go in there and you say, hey, let's become basically like the G League for you. You get all these nice developmental players, and eventually it can come down to a point to where you get like little supplemental drafts for these guys, or you draft guys and be like the NBA. You just send them straight to the G League. You sign two-way contracts. Like you can transform contracts in the NFL with this. Like so, I think this is massive, and I think you really starting to see like a farm system from uh from the NFL. I mean, how great? I'm just gonna throw Tony Jones' name out there. Like, how great would it be to send Tony Jones to the Breakers for like a year, and he comes back amazing, like things like that. So
Would love to
I
see
think I
that.
think I see G League out of this. That's what I see. I see G League out of this.
Well, I mean, we've always asked why the NFL can't have like a minor league of some sorts. And back in the 80s, it almost seemed like the USFL was their minor league. 'Cause, I mean, in the 80s, you had people like Herschel Walker, Doug Flutie, Sam Mills, Reggie White, Doug Williams, players like that, or even Jim Kelly. And then they went to the NFL, and of course, legendary legends. And I'm not saying there's going to be players of that nature coming from the USFL these days going to the NFL, but you have you have good players, not great yet, but good players. It was good football. It wasn't like the AAF. It wasn't like any of these other spring leagues that we have seen in the past that didn't pan out, but it was really good football. And I would love to see the USFL become like the G League or minor league of sorts because we're seeing all these players who would have never gotten a shot before get a shot now that they had a chance to showcase their talents. Like people like Kyle Sloter, who's journeyman quarterback, just signed with the Jaguars, like I said. And then you got Sal Cannella, who probably bounced around from NFL team for the last 1 or 2 years. Then he goes out in the USFL, and it's the best tight end in the league. And now he's on the Packers. He gets to catch passes from Aaron Rodgers. It's freaking insane. You love to see it. So my only thing is, can they keep it going? I want to see them keep it going. If they can keep this pace and keep everything consistent, do not change a thing. The rules are great. Everything is great the way it is. It's just that you got to get more kind of talented players because if you look around, the quarterback play was only like probably C plus B minus grade at that. Offensive line, but the receivers, the running backs, the DBs, and the defenses was great. The only thing that they can improve on is the quarterback play and the offensive line. Everything was great. The rules, I mean, I love the overtime rules. It was a 2 point shootout. You get 3 tries, and the Breakers was the first to do it. Freaking phenomenal. So, and then if the NFL wants to collaborate with them, like you say, like the NBA does with the G League when it comes to rules. So, hey, let's try out this new rule. Let's try it out in the USFL first before we bring it to the NFL. See how it works. That could work, but with the XFL coming out, I hope it just doesn't become oversaturated and the USFL doesn't panic and just changes up stuff and whatnot. So maybe even if maybe the XFL can even merge with the USFL in the future. I don't know if that's something that The Rock would want to do, but I really love what the USFL has done. And it's just too bad that the XFL from 2020 didn't get to finish their season because that was looking like it was going to be probably the minor league for the NFL before the USFL came back around. So really think it's in a good spot. I never in a million years thought we would be talking about minor league football, but here we are and I love it. You can never have enough football in my opinion. And speaking of football, we're getting to virtual football, Calvin. We're talking about Madden ratings. You wanted to discuss and talk about this because you was kind of ticked off at some of the ratings, as is a lot of people and even players. Saints came in at a 77 offensive rating and also 82 defensive rating. So, what is your take on that, Calvin? Because I felt the offense is right where it needs to be. And defense, I think, could be 88, but offense, I think, is fine at 77. And then I remember you asking me, do you think that they should be rated the same as the Falcons? I said, no, I think the Falcons should probably be rated as a 71 offense or even 72. But the Saints at 77 is just right in the ballpark for right now because, like I told you, everything on paper always looks fantastic. Everything on paper always looks fantastic, but want to see it in a game. So 77 for offense, perfect for me. 82 for defense, not so much. So, Calvin, the floor is yours. This is something you wanted to discuss and rant about. So, the floor is yours, my friend.
So there's some very fundamental issues with these ratings. Okay. I've seen like the what was it, change of pace, change of directions, stats for Madden. And Alvin Kamara, like, isn't like he's barely even top 10. Like, you got guys I've even heard of. You got Devin Singletary with like a 95 change of direction. And I'm like, I've never seen Devin Singletary move that well. I mean, he's usually north south. Like, what the hell are we talking about? Uh, the Buccaneers are a 93 overall team. They didn't even make the Super Bowl last year. What what are we talking about? like like and the Saints are sitting at an 83 overall. That's just disgusting because the Saints swept. And I mean, look, everybody can get beat any given Sunday, but the Saints swept the Buccaneers. Buccaneers didn't make the Super Bowl. Tom Brady is a 97 overall. I mean, Jesus Christ. You got
I'm
MVP Aaron Rodgers, and you don't even rate him the highest. Patrick Mahomes, when he won MVPs, he was the highest quarterback. What are we talking about? They put Dak Prescott over Justin Herbert. I don't quite understand that. Um, like, I'm not really understanding most of these ratings. Tyrann Mathieu has the best strong safety in the league. That's a little bit of a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting him to do that, especially at a 94. I was not expecting that. That just makes me feel a lot better because no team wanted to get Tyrann Mathieu. The Saints just get him for cheap, basically. The best safety in the game. DeMario Davis is finally getting his respect. He's a 93 overall. I think they kind of screw Michael Thomas and Marshawn just a little bit because Christian McCaffrey's a 96 overall, and the man has like played 4 or 5 games in 2 years. So if we're gonna go by that logic, there's no reason why Michael Thomas still shouldn't be a 99, or he should at least be a 95. Because if he's not retaining his ratings because of injury, now this is Christian McCaffrey. Ryan Ramchek's at an 89. You just said he could be Hall of Fame, and he's at an 89.
He could.
No, that's not right. Then that's just not right. C.J. Gardner Johnson, I think he should be at least 85. He was around at 82 last year, and he had an amazing season. He should be a lot better than 82. David Onyemata is 80. David Onyemata is one of the best D tackles in the game, but nobody wants to acknowledge that.
He's
The
very
guy
underrated.
holds it down.
He's
Very
very
underrated.
underrated.
Will Lutz, 78 overall for Will Lutz. I mean, bro, I don't even think he's top 10 for kickers right now, and that's just not okay. Taysom Hill, they finally bumped him up to a 72. It depends what position he is, but I feel like he's a little better than 72,
I
depending
agree.
on what position he plays.
Well, well, I
Alvin
mean,
Kamara's a 90.
yeah,
I
Alvin
don't know if
Kamara
I
is
can
a
do Alvin
90.
Kamara at 90. He should be a little higher than that, in my
Well,
opinion.
I can
But
I could dig
you
that.
know,
I think Alvin Kamara could at least be a 93. I think that's right
yeah,
around perfect ballpark. Now McCaffrey, he didn't play a whole heck of a lot last year. I would probably put him probably like right below Kamara at like a 92, 91. But in the end, it's Madden, bro. We're gonna play it anyway. Ratings are gonna change throughout the season. So it's not like these are gonna be permanent. So, but we are running out of time here. And this podcast today was just one of those ones where, well, hopefully the next one is way better than this one. So, because today was just a bumpy ride.
yeah,
Wow.
very bumpy.
And I don't know if anyone watching notices, but I'm in Martin's living room and I absolutely love this. But so with that being said, I am your man, Logan Graffia. He is Calvin Rhines. We will see you next time on another edition of The Hit.